I'm like, dog, I'm fighting against my very physiology, my physical makeup. Basically, the world we live in was built around one type of brain. And we are learning now, I mean, the language they seem to use is neurodivergent. It's like, oh, maybe there isn't just one kind of brain. So the question becomes, how do people with our types of brains interface with the world that was built for a different kind? In what feels like days, we can 10x our growth immediately, which is wild. Obviously, there is the great power, and then some of that, when not treated, can be actually super harmful for your life. You got to rein it in. But yeah, it is a superpower if you can channel it.
Welcome to the Art of ADHD. I'm your host, Liam Danger Park, and on today's episode, we're meeting with Quinn McGraw. Quinn is a creative powerhouse and a musician with just shy of 2 million streams across his various projects. On today's episode, we discuss his struggles with addiction, the double-edged sword that is an ADHD mind, and the trials and tribulations, the blessings and the challenges of relating with people and ADHD. I hope you enjoy the show. Thanks so much for coming on the show today, Quinn. I'm excited to chat.
Dude, it's an honor to be here.
So when I first learned about ADHD, or like that, maybe that explained me, I was thinking about the friends that I had and like how they related. And I thought, well, I got this one friend who, you know, he plays every instrument in a metal band. He produces electronic music.
Yeah.
He studies ancient philosophy. He does this and that and this and that. And that friend is you. Yeah.
Dude, the things you learn.
Like I realized that like all my favorite people, very eclectic and very well described by ADHD.
Yeah.
What is your life looking like in this chapter? What kind of things are keeping you busy?
Oh man. Music all the time.
Yeah.
That's been the one constant through my life, as you know. I've been playing in bands since I was 15, and that's never stopped.
Yeah.
Not every band has gone on to do things, but music's always been a big part of my life. And besides that, I freelance. I've been self-employed for 6 years, primarily working in financial media, and then recently, over the past few years, pretty much from the lockdowns onward, started getting into digital marketing, helping emerging artists like myself break into the internet and doing social and streaming traffic and stuff. And that's been, a few years in the making now, and that's growing as well.
Okay. And so like, are you still doing metal? Is that your primary musical outlet or what?
Yes. Although the stuff I'm currently writing, so I'm working on a new solo project right now, and it is a harmony of all of the things throughout most of my musical past. So I was doing solo music for a while. There's elements of that. I like big riffs and breakdowns. There's some of that in there. So yeah, it feels the most me so far. Yeah. But that should be coming out sometime in 2025. So
cool. Yeah. So music is the central thing, audio in general. Mm-hmm. As I was describing, this is like, you came to mind when I realized I might have ADHD.
I came to mind when I thought people have ADHD.
Yeah. But it sounds like it's recently pivoted for you a little bit. Like you got a little more clarity on that recently?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I was a kid, I was diagnosed, and this would have been somewhere around grade 10, somewhere in there, 9 to 10-ish. Got diagnosed, and back then the only options you really had were Ritalin. I'm sure there were others, but that was the one I tried, and it seemed to be pretty commonplace. Did that for maybe a year, and I just hated how I felt on it. I was doped up, space cadet. I could focus, but I felt like there was not really much me. I just felt like a husk, which is a wild insight to have when you're 15 or 16. I don't feel like me. So after that, I just left all of that behind. Yeah. And then more recently, my brother was diagnosed, and that was a big game changer for him. And then we started talking about it more, and obviously, you know, I've lived with this presupposition from when I was diagnosed as a kid that back then, the very uneducated take I had was that there are kids who are bored and they are stuck in factory camp, aka public school. Yeah. And because not everyone is going to be able to mold into that, it was like, oh, you get ADHD and you get ADHD and this kid gets Ritalin and this kid can't focus in class. And I always thought, oh, these kids are just bored to death. Yeah. Like I'm a very artistic, creative guy. and I'm sitting there having to stare at textbooks for hours. So in the back of my mind, I was like, I don't have ADHD. This school's just boring. And it turns out that's not the case. So I was recently...
Maybe it's both.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are elements of both, but after my older brother was diagnosed, I was like, okay, maybe I'll look into it again. Maybe the landscape has changed. Maybe we have better diagnostic tools. Both of those are true. And yeah, so I got confirmed again, and I was like, okay, sweet, that all checks out. And then, of course, I went into an ADHD rabbit hole studying ADHD because that's the thing. You just get fast brain and you hyperfixate on stuff. Yeah. The more I dug in, I was like, oh, it's me. Yeah. Oh, that's totally me.
Whoops.
Oh, yeah. Did you know that ADHD untreated presents itself as addiction and things like that? I was like, oh, that's also me. Crazy. Yeah. So I started going through the medication process a few weeks back, maybe a month or two into it now. And it's been an absolute game changer. And I've gotten this far without it, but I feel optimized now, which is pretty new.
I think like most of your friends, I would speculate, I'm, making some assumptions. But they probably look at you as a person who has actually accomplished quite a bit and done pretty well over the years, in spite of not really acknowledging this diagnosis or having a treatment. So what worked for you all these years? Like, how were you able, like, because, a lot of ADHD people want to make music. But then, get distracted or insecure or whatever happens and they don't. But you've made it, and not just made it, but you've made it like look good, sound good. It's like out there.
Just waiting for that deal, Mom. It's coming.
Yeah. Like maybe you're not like a rock star yet, but you've done well. You got hundreds of thousands of streams, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Like that's not a small
I actually
feat.
did a count for a press kit I'm writing for this new project, and it's like just shy of 2 million across a few of the things I've released.
Yeah, that might not be rock star status in the contemporary sense, but that's huge.
It doesn't feel bad.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at that.
Yeah. Like, how have you made that work?
Well, I mean, I think if we were to try to compartmentalize, so much of this is a multifaceted issue. So for ADHD in particular, that is one component of how someone might struggle to organize their lives in a way where they could be productive.
Yeah.
But that's also not all of it. I think, so when I was a kid, my mom put me in, not necessarily therapy, but I've been working with people in my life doing the work, working through self-limiting beliefs and things like that since I was 14 or 15. Yeah. So I think that in itself gives me an upper hand of feeling like I can in general accomplish things and not cower or be afraid to try and fail, where I think while ADHD can make it hard to focus and organize and complete things, the other part of that is very much the state of your mental and emotional health. Yeah. So because I spent so much time working on that, I feel that gave me a leg up, where if I hadn't done that, paired with untreated ADHD, it's hard to say how much I would have actually accomplished. Yeah. So yeah, I think that gave me a bit of an advantage there.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I think a lot of people underestimate, underappreciate, and undervalue like the impact of mindset and 100%. Attitude.
Yeah.
Right. Especially like, I remember even growing up in school, there were all these posters that say attitude is everything. And I was like,
you're like, that's dumb. And then you get old and you're like, I'm the idiot.
That was absolutely right.
Super true. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So what are some examples of like how that's played out for you? Like, what are some of the best failures you've had in your creative journeys?
Oh man. Well, not to be the hallmark card of sayings, but they're only failures if you quit.
Yeah.
So for me in music, I think I've actually been thinking about this a lot because I was just talking to my mom about this, so I'm starting a new project.
Yeah.
And I am known as a guy who starts projects.
Yeah.
And not all of them become things, and some people might look at that and think, oh, here comes Quinn with another band again. Like, why don't you just commit to the one band? And to that, I would just say, if you're a director, you're not just going to make one movie. You're going to keep making them. And the more you do, the more experience you will gain from that pursuit, the more you will refine your skills. And I think to make the analogy between that and songs would be unfair, because bands are this whole living organism of creativity. Yeah. So if anything, like the more swings at bat I have taken, the better I get at understanding like team dynamics and understanding what I want from a band, what I don't want from a band. I mean, even just exploring sound in general and trying to find what feels like you. You got to write 100 bad songs till you write a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just, I think you just have to keep trying. And again, coming back to this, sorry, hit me one more time with that.
Well, I was asking about your best failures.
The best failure. Hold on, give me a second to think about that. I don't know. I don't know if like the question computes with my brain.
Yeah,
because
like,
I don't know if I would actually consider anything that I have done a failure.
Okay, was there like a creative project that was marked by an extreme setback? Were there any?
Yeah, I think some of the setbacks I have found in creative projects with other people particularly is that my brain, based on the ADHD, hyperfixate, fast brain that I have always struggled with being able to channel that into something, and my bandmates don't. So I've always struggled with, if I set my mind to something, I'm going to give 110% because I can just channel that into it. And a lot of the tensions I have found in my creative life come from working with people who don't meet me there. So I think one of the biggest failures, so to speak, would actually be my inability to slow down and understand that not everyone is going Mach 10 all the time, which is oddly enough something that I've found more peace with now, going through the pharmaceutical treatment process.
Yeah.
That's if that answers that. Yeah.
I think it's a fair thing, and I think it's one of those things that sort of straddles the ADHD superpower sort of thing.
Yeah, right.
Because he's full of controversy. Not saying he's a saint, but James Brown made incredible music.
Yeah, right.
And like what you're describing, I'm sure he dealt with, but by the sounds of things, in a different way. Like he was famous for like finding his bandmates. Like during a show, he'd flash his hands and it was like 5, 10, 15, 20. That's what you owe me after the show. Like he was finding his bandmates, disguising it as a dance move because they weren't tight enough.
Whoa.
And so that aggressive vision and drive.
Was he known to have had ADHD, or is that just a...
He was known to have been addicted to cocaine.
I mean, same.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, just as an example, like I don't know if he's ADHD or not, but just to show like, the cost of that vision and drive, well, sometimes it generates incredible results.
But sometimes it can destroy relationships.
Yeah.
And your will to be creative entirely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a beast, but you got to tame it.
Yeah.
And sometimes that looks like, experience, having it blow up enough that you realize maybe I should look into the thing that might result in it imploding.
Yeah.
Or just being okay to try medication and see if that helps as well. The catch-22 there, though, is that, again, with straddling the line, if you over-medicate, then you lose your super brain ability. So it's like, I want to optimize my way of life, but I don't want to destroy the thing that makes me me, which can sometimes be this ability to go into a creative flurry and whirlwind, unbound by anything, and then emerge 3 or 4 days later like, whoa, that was nuts.
Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah.
So the medication is a huge one. Like I've seen a lot of stats that suggest that unmedicated ADHD people are a lot more likely to struggle with addiction. I know that's
been my entire life. Yeah,
you sort of mentioned here already, and I know you've had some struggles with that.
Oh, yeah.
What did that look like? Like what in the depths of it? Like just so people can maybe relate. Like where are the dark places you've been?
Oh, dude. Got a minute?
Yeah. Spark notes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Man, I pretty much since high school up until, like maybe the following decade from around graduation until a few years ago, where I was just trying to white knuckle sobriety to get my demons under control. what was most illuminating is learning that having ADHD and it being untreated, and again, pharmacology is one way to treat it. You could use cognitive behavioral therapy. There are other techniques, right? But yeah, for me, that pretty much looked like chasing dopamine every which way all the time, whether it was like cocaine, ecstasy, pornography, even like novelty. I learned was a big way to create dopamine. So that would play a lot into, again, getting hyperfixated and wanting to start new projects all the time. And every time I would launch a new project, it was so exciting, but then I would struggle to maintain that energy and that intensity to carry it even further, or I would lose interest really fast. And getting sober was one thing that helped me a lot, but that underlying current of always needing something. Like I managed to stay sober almost 4 years. And then again, it was like booze, vaping, buying stuff online I didn't need. All of that just came back because I'm fighting against this current that was just untreated. Yeah.
So a lot of people listening with ADHD might be struggling in that same hole. Like certainly the novelty addiction, when you were like that, I was like, oh, that's
Dude,
me.
I've bought so many books I've never read.
Oh yeah.
Just like, oh yeah, Amazon, just feeding that.
Yeah. So what did it look like to get past that? Like how did you decide or move out of addiction?
Oh, that was tough. I mean, I had a quite literal come to Jesus moment. So the spiritual path, it was funny. Like when I was in my addiction dark age, if you will, there was a time there where I took a break. I was sober for almost a year, and I was like a pretty adamant, active, practicing Buddhist. So meditation and spiritual grounding, I think, helped a lot, and that created a foundation for later exploring Christianity. And again, like finding that peace, that spiritual peace, I think is a very powerful tool that's often underestimated. Because again, like you're searching for all of these things in a way where you're looking for something material to satisfy or chemical to satisfy this constant fix you need. And I've managed to find rest in spiritual places compared to just white knuckling it, for lack of a better term.
People looking for a material solution to a spiritual problem.
And I think that's definitely a part of it, but we also need to be careful to not over spiritualize the fact that you just have a different brain physiology. Because again, like if that's the case and you can find temporary respite from this state that your brain is always functioning from, if you never cure or manage the underlying condition, then it's like it will always come back and rear its ugly head, which it did for me this past year. But
I think the spiritual aspect is interesting, and also conspicuously neglected in the mental health thing. Because even if
community, belonging, like all those really good things that will probably help in this
current
social climate.
Like say you intellectualize these things and you find them hard to believe. Fair enough.
Sure.
Right? They're hard to believe, but the
community,
or even like one thing I found working with people with
self-acceptance, crazy.
Self-acceptance is huge. Or even just like having some decisions made for you. Because I find one of the greatest sources of like paralyzation, indecision in an ADHD life is like, well, we can imagine the infinite. So what should we do at any given moment? There's too many options, and then we get stuck. Whereas like if you are anchored to like a traditional moral code of sorts, at least you can say like, okay, whatever I'm going to do, it's oriented towards, service to mankind. Whereas like if you have nothing, was like, what am I going to do? Well, is it just seek dopamine? Is it good? I'm going to play video games because I like it.
Like lists will set you free. I live my life by all kinds of lists. And having a list that can orient you spiritually, I think, is also a list worth investigating.
How do you like? I think some people get overwhelmed, right? Like there's archaic language. There's these weird things. Like it feels, we're in such a material world. Sometimes the spiritual is hard to grapple with. But if someone's like,
especially in the West where we're in the era of, we've killed God and we're seeing the decline of religion a lot in most of the, like the developed nations. Right.
So if that novelty, excitement is starting to peak in someone with ADHD, how do they get started, like, without, hanging out with a bunch of, like, 'cause some people are kind of cringy in the spiritual space.
Amen.
And, like,
Are they
obviously
Yeah.
good on them, bless them.
Right.
But that might not be right for some people. So if someone's, like, curious about finding a spiritual grounding or practice that helps them, like, what has helped you explore the world spiritually? Or what do you...
Well, I mean, one of the superpowers of ADHD is immersion.
Yeah.
And I learn best by fully throwing myself into anything. So if you want to know what something's like, whether it's spiritual or creative or anything like that, just throw yourself into the deep end and see what happens.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's going to be that component of novelty, which can be good and that can satisfy for a time. But in general, I think I don't do anything half-ass.
Yeah.
So, yeah, regardless of what I touch in my life, I'm definitely cool to fully commit to it.
Yeah.
And just see what happens.
Yeah.
And so far, it's worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that sounds like that comes back to the people you were talking about teaching you to deal with limiting beliefs from a young age. Because I think with the ADHD brain, it can go either way. You're
100%,
either all in, or you think about it, you wonder about it.
Yeah, you're either always outside of the cave or you're terrified to leave it.
Yeah.
And so much of the ADHD brain is this polar extreme tension that you can live in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were talking about, like, the people involved in your life. Like, you said not necessarily counselors. You said your mom sort of got you started.
Yeah. Although conventional therapy has also been a part of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I like to cast a wide net.
Yeah. Like, what are the kinds of relationships you think have helped you capitalize on your head, or, like, use your brain in a way where, yeah, you feel can creative and empowered and not, like, stifled, stuck in the cave?
Oh, man. One of the women I have seen throughout probably the longest in my life, her biggest thing is essentially that we all have power within us, and it's important to understand that it is yours and you can choose to use it whenever you want. And it's very much it almost feels a little stoic, like only focus on what you can control. And I think there is something powerful to that because, again, you cannot control anything in the world around you except yourself and how you respond to it.
Yeah.
So finding ways to hear that message and actually let it sink in and start to form who you are, whether that's through therapy, whether that's through reading the Stoics, whether that's religion, I find that download is uniquely powerful.
Yeah.
And that can empower you to want to take risks, and that can empower you to feel like you can try something and not worry about whether or not you'll fail at it.
Yeah.
Because again, you only fail if you give up.
Yeah. I think one of the challenges I've faced growing up, and that I see a lot in this space, is the, like, I feel like relating to what you're saying, like, I think we all have our own power, and there's things we can't control. And one of the things that's interesting we can't control is interest. It just sort of manifests. And I think if you pursue that, like, if you're really interested, like, a lot of us learn not to pursue our interests for whatever reason, it's not practical. It's
Get a real job.
Get a real job.
Still doing music?
Yeah.
What would I do without it?
But yeah, we're super interested in things, whether we like it or not. And if you have that interest, you can go deep and go far and do more than other people. But it's sort of hard to nurture that, especially when you have that novelty-seeking drive and you're not, like, you might doubt your interest. Like, I'm interested in this. Will the interest last? Is this an authentic interest, or is this like a novelty-seeking behavior?
Which is interesting because before I knew this about that being a factor with having this type of brain, that was never something that would have crossed my mind. For me, every interest I adopted was incredibly real.
Yeah.
And I wasn't second guessing how legitimate it would be or whether or not it would last. I would just thrive in throwing myself into it. Like, that was kind of the hit. That was the drug. Like, I recently, this past year, I got super into Warhammer again. I used to play when I was a kid. But not just, Warhammer looks kind of fun. Maybe I'll, like, buy a little kit of guys and then I'll go to, like, a hobby night and meet some people. It was like, no, I'm going to study the game, master the game. I'm going to buy terrain. I'm going to get multiple armies. I'm going to get a whole paint set for my house. I'm going to spend hours painting and play the game all the time. And then a month or two of that would go by and then it'd be like, cool, that was fun. What's next?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not great if that's the way you live your life all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas now I'm finding myself okay with seeing Warhammer as a hobby.
Yeah.
And just because I'm not into it right now, that doesn't mean I just get rid of everything and wait until the next thing comes along. It's like, oh, I can pick stuff up and put it down. That's okay.
Yeah, I think
it can be in and out of my life. It doesn't have to be 110%. It can be a casual relationship with a thing. That's allowed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw a video suggested to me. I didn't bother watching because I get the idea, and I think it relates to this, is like seasonal hobbies.
Yeah,
and
right.
That's sort of a way I've sort of come to peace with some of this too.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. I think our culture being so digital and immersive all the time, we forget about the reality of things like seasons. And there's some hobbies, say running or exercising at the beach. That makes sense in the spring and summer. Doesn't make sense in the winter or fall. Like, certainly not the winter, depending on where you live. Like, and even these hobbies that, like Warhammer's not strictly attached to the season, but maybe it's more appealing during the dark nights of fall.
It's becoming a winter hobby for sure. When it's slower and I'm at home more and I'm not outside doing stuff, just like throw on a kettle, get a nice tea going, throw on some music and just kind of paint.
Yeah, so I think the seasonality of things is a good way to, like, because like a lot of people I think have a lot of shame about, they take up a hobby, maybe they spend hundreds of dollars and then they stop. And then
which has been me most of my life.
Yeah. But then like people, like for some people, like you're finding peace with it. And sometimes there's like, I see lots of posts on the online Facebook groups of people like, oh, I've spent hundreds of dollars on this and I don't do it. And there's like a shame attached to it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like, why do you think you're immune to that? Like, because it seems like you're quite comfortable with just...
Well, yes and no. I found that there was a certain amount of shame attached to starting another musical project for me recently, which is fairly new. I think a lot of that just comes from allowing external opinions to influence how I feel about it, which isn't something I've often wrestled with. But I think being able to identify that that's what was making me feel off about it allows me to just know that that's what it is, and just find a way to be okay with that. Yeah, which is easier said than done, obviously. But,
I think music might be uniquely positioned to help you deal with that, because like if you're as deep into music as you are,
it's one of the only constants I've had in my whole life.
And if you look at many of the best artists in the world, the only constant for them is constant reinvention. Like some, album 1 sounds like album 2 sounds like album 3. But you got like, saw a picture recently of, I think it was like George Harrison maybe, but it was like 1967 or 64. I don't remember. But start of the year, end of the year. Start of the year, button-up suit, reasonably well-kept hair. End of the year, scraggly mustache, hair all over, like loose thing. Or like Bob Dylan, he like famously reinvented himself over and over and over again and sort of lost his fans over and over and over again.
Still a legend,
But it became a legend. So,
well, I mean, I think if you're into music, and I listen to everything, even some country. Sorry, but I find that there is and maybe this could play in with some of that novelty seeking for sure. But I have had so much fun trying on different genres. Whether that's, obviously metal and heavy alternative music is where I tend to live the most, but that can look like a metalcore band. It could look like pop punk. It could look like, I don't know, all kinds of stuff within that scope. But then also I've found, like, I did pop music for like dark pop stuff for, 3-4 years. And I learned so much doing that. I found at the end, it didn't feel like it was me. But again, through immersion, like I tried it on and I learned so much. And now bringing that back into what I'm doing, I found that it's given me a new lens to reapproach stuff that maybe I wouldn't approach that way had I not done that.
I like, and I'm interested in the way you frame it as trying it on, because I think a lot of, especially again, like it might be a social media issue, right? Everyone, whether they like it or not, on purpose or by accident, has a personal brand, and you might start to identify like, this is what I'm like. Especially even in the ADHD space, I see one of the challenges and problems of it is people sort of reifying that, like, I have ADHD, this problem's ADHD, so I'm defined by this problem, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I mean, there's issues with that. Like, I've tried on Alcoholics Anonymous to help with trying to get sober, and again, trying on all of these different philosophies and perspectives to see which ones I really resonate with.
Yeah.
And I find a lot of these tools that you can have are not, they are going to be multiple paths up the same mountain.
Yeah.
But it's not a linear path,
Yeah.
and there isn't just one path. And I find if the path you're currently on further solidifies and ingrains you in one particular way of thinking, if it works for you, that's great. Like, I'm not saying don't go to AA. If you find that that works for you, that's awesome. Like, my uncle's been sober a long time because of that, and that's great.
Yeah.
But I have found that certain things I have tried don't necessarily resonate with me. I learn lots of great tools from them,
Yeah.
but they don't always seem to be the thing that will provide lasting change
Yeah.
or something I want to be involved with all the time. It's like finding a therapist.
Yeah.
Try different therapists.
Yeah.
So many people are like, yeah, I went to a therapist, it didn't work out, so I don't do therapy anymore. I'm like, dude, what? There's like multiple schools of thought, multiple ways of treating. There's talk therapy, trauma therapy. Like, what do you mean you're just done?
Yeah. I went to a massage therapist.
Yeah, I've had one massage. It sucked. Massages, dumb. Like, that's just the worst take.
Yeah.
But again, it's easier to do that. It's easier to just stay in that cave.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the reasons, like, I prefer to just say, like, people described by ADHD.
Yeah,
Because
I would
like,
say that's good
rather
language.
than diagnosed or I have, like, I'm described by ADHD.
Honestly, even the stigma around calling it a disorder.
Yeah, I'd rather if we could, like, change that.
I thought of a pretty good analogy about this, where basically the world we live in was built around one type of brain.
Yeah.
Cool, great. And we are learning now, I mean, the language they seem to use is neurodivergent.
Yeah.
This is a whole emerging thing of, it's like, oh, maybe there isn't just one kind of brain.
Yeah.
Strange. So the question becomes, how do people with our types of brains, which aren't disordered,
Yeah.
they are simply different,
Yeah.
how does that type of brain interface with the world that was built for a different kind?
Yeah.
And this is where we find ourselves. And for some people that does look like medication. But I think if you see the way you are as broken or disordered or unorthodox, that's not really an empowering position to take.
Yeah.
Like, it can just be, you can just have a different way of thinking. You can just have a different physiology. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that resonates so much more with me because, like I said, growing up, most of my favorite people are described by ADHD. And maybe I'm described by ADHD, but I wouldn't trade my brain in for a normal one. I don't want to.
No,
I
I'm
love
chilling.
my brain.
Yeah.
Like, I have a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't change a lot of it. And yeah, the amount that I have seen how my path has unfolded before me in my life compared to people who don't have this type of fast brain, tunnel vision ability, it looks very different, and I'm stoked at where mine's led me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, we have that ability to just get really into something and master it.
Yeah.
Or at least be fully like fleshed out in a particular idea or view or activity in what feels like days.
Yeah.
We can 10x our growth immediately,
Yeah.
which is wild. Obviously, there is the great power, and then some of that becomes, when not treated, can be actually super harmful for your life.
Yeah.
So you got to rein it in. But yeah, it is a superpower if you can channel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about, like, an alternative name? Like, if you don't like the stigma of the thing?
I mean, I like the idea of the word neurodivergent. I've just been playing around with it in my head for a bit. But again, it suggests that it is a divergence from normalcy.
Yeah.
Which, the more we have people researching and studying and this, at first it was like, I mean, take autism, for example. If you were autistic, you were essentially far end of the spectrum, completely unable to be integrated into society.
Yeah.
You weren't functioning, like, it was a mess. And if you had that, you were diagnosed as autistic.
Yeah.
If you had a high functioning autism, we would just say you had Asperger's.
Yeah.
We don't use that word anymore because we're understanding that autism is actually a spectrum.
Yeah.
And it's the same with ADHD. Where like some doctors suggest we might have up to 7 different ways in which that can present itself in someone who has it. So we're still learning so much. So I wouldn't say that the normal brains are normal. There actually may be a pretty even amount of brains who are neurodivergent and ones who don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what the future's like.
Yeah, it's such a mess because there's like such a
Yes.
there's such a benefit to labels. Like I remember when I first found out.
Well,
I
we
was
have to call
described
it something.
Yeah.
Because then how can we address it if we don't?
Yeah, it's got to have a name.
But language can change over time.
Yeah.
As understanding does. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think when we like have hundreds of research papers and institutions and industries built around something, it becomes fossilized and hard to change the language.
Yeah, I mean, cognitive dissonance in the medical field might very well be why we have the peanut allergy epidemic in North America. Peter Attia, look it up. It's a real thing. It's crazy. Yeah, so to your point, like these things can crystallize in a way that might actually not be beneficial for progress and understanding.
Meds, they have a stigma in my mind, as well as others. Like, you know, I've only tried Ritalin because my doctor's kind of hands off and it was a pain in the butt to get anything else, and I can't jump through those hoops. But it sounds like it's been a game changer for you. So tell me a bit about what it's looked like to get on meds, what's changed.
Yeah, I mean, accepting the diagnosis for what it was. I mean, Peter Attia has a great thing that he talks about a lot where he says, if you were going to go through the process of getting diagnosed for something, be willing to then act upon it. Yeah. For some of his patients, he'll say, we could diagnose you for maybe whatever it is, or we could do the tests and we could find out what's wrong with you. But if you're not going to change anything in your life about it, don't get the tests. Yeah. So for me, going through, it's a survey you just fill out.
Yeah.
And from there, it told me what I thought it would, but then it took me time to just accept that that's what it was. And I had to work through a fair amount of my own pride. Yeah. And some of these completely uneducated opinions, because it's like, okay, you have ADHD. What's the course of action? Well, there is cognitive behavioral therapy and there's medication. And because medication was working for my brother, I was like, well, we're probably like 99.9% the same physiology. Yeah. And if ADHD is genetic, which there is debate around that, it seems to be academic consensus, but there are other people like Gaber Mate who are like, no, it's not. Yeah. So we'll see. We don't really know yet. But if that's the case, then yeah, I'll try medication. But it took a lot of kicking and screaming and my unwillingness to, I don't want to take a pill every day. Just the idea of that. And I'm already somewhat averse to the pharmaceutical industry in general. Yeah. So that sucked. But then I just bit my tongue and tried it. And man, it was like someone put glasses over my brain. Yeah. I could really see. And I would have moments of post-meditation clarity just in everyday life. Like I could think. Yeah. My brain was quiet and it didn't feel so noisy and crowded and cluttered. I could hold my focus on stuff for a while. And so Vyvanse was where I started. So it's lisdexamfetamine. And I tried that for a while and was playing around with the doses. They start you really low and they kind of work you up until you find where your wall is or your ceiling. And there came a point where I thought, I don't really feel that great on this. Yeah. It's either too strong or maybe it was my body just getting used to amphetamines, just taking boutique meth microdoses all the time. Yeah. So then I switched to Concerta, which is methylphenidate, different drug. And that felt good for a while, but it wasn't giving me the same effect that I thought Vyvanse was, where I found I was not only clear, but I was optimized. Yeah. But then I took a break for a week. That was so illuminating that week. Started wanting to buy stuff on Amazon again. I felt my brain going like, oh, we should start vaping. And all of these things just came rushing back. And I was like, yo, dog, that is nuts. Yeah. So back on medication now, I found a dose that seems to work. That is, the best way to put it is if you have good focus days, if you have more good focus days than bad focus days, then chances are you're on a medication and a dose that works. Yeah. Yeah, if you go too high, then you start to hit that point of you might get micro improvements for potential risk of side effects. And there could be long-term side effects to these drugs. We don't really know.
Yeah.
That's totally part of it. But do you want to have 80 years of a whirlwind of a life, which for me, if being unmedicated and just trying to take this on the chin was the path I had, I don't know if I would want to walk that for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Or maybe you have, 78 years being fully optimized. And who knows? Neither of those could matter if you have a heart attack in your 40s.
Yeah.
So whatever.
Yeah.
We're all going to die, fam.
Eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
I wonder and worry, and we're not qualified to speak on it really. This is not medical advice.
This is not financial advice.
It's not financial advice. It's not medical advice. But that thing you're describing, I wonder if it's like a whiplash effect almost, where your brain sort of
is there a J curve? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Is it getting used to this regulation, and then then you have a lower baseline now because you've changed
so
it.
So there are some discussions. Actually, a really great podcast on this is Andrew Huberman.
Okay.
He has a whole series on ADHD. Actually, it's funny. The reason, so I work on the Drive, and this is my ADHD brain in real time right now. It's like, here's 4 ideas. I have them all strung together perfectly. I can follow this thread. If you
Let's
can,
go.
good luck. Yeah. So Andrew Huberman's podcast, put that on the board, pause. So I was working on a podcast. I'm one of the editors on the Drive, and great show. And he had the world's probably leading pediatric neurologist on.
Yeah.
And she specializes in diagnosing children as young as 16, 18 months, I think. I could be wrong on that, but very young, with autism and ADHD. And so most of that episode is a 3-hour crash course on the current state of affairs in this field, which was fascinating. And that was one of the things that made me go, maybe I should take a dose of humble pie, because they specifically had that one, Peter asked the one question specifically, so there is an opinion that exists on the internet, and it's not an educated one, but it exists. And the opinion goes like so. Maybe school's just really boring, and we're just medicating kids to fit them into the institution. And they both just had a laugh yeah, no, that's just that is just, maybe there is some of that. But the research and data we start to now build in these fields suggests that that's not the case. And actually there could just be way more people that have this than we thought, because now we're actually able to diagnose and find ways to figure out if people even have it. So knowledge is power. So that was great. That got me onto it. And then I started going down this rabbit hole of, okay, well, what does ADHD look like? And what are medications? And are there side effects? And then Andrew Huberman has this series where it's all about your brain's dopamine system, how to optimize it, how to create and sustain natural dopamine, and even things like dopamine fasting to help with your baseline and stuff. And then he has another episode that specifically talks about, it's 3-ish hours, all about the medications available for ADHD, how they work, what side effects could be, and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, there's a part of me that thinks, well, taking stimulants all the time probably isn't good for my body, so to speak.
Yeah.
But the other end of that is, well, how good for my body is it if I'm either taking a single drug that gives me sustained levels of dopamine, and again, you want to pair this with exercise, rest, good food. There are other ways to build that dopamine. Or I'm a ticking time bomb that I'm one bad week away from going off the rails to do drugs and drink myself to death. It's it's not really a hard call to make for me. So
you humble yourself a little for that.
Yeah, it's not on this is just that. I'm rolling the dice a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the best things about the Huberman Lab podcast, I would
Shout
say, is it has a pause button, and you can come back to it later, because it can be really dry, but the information is good.
It's super heady. It's very academic.
Yeah.
But again, I didn't even get through that whole episode. I just clicked to the parts where I wanted to know. He's like, we're going to talk about all the mechanics of how stimulants fire in your cortex and this, that. And I was like, nope. And boom.
Yeah.
This is what Vyvanse is. This is how Vyvanse works. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Some of it way over my head.
Yeah.
But the general consensus is, again, it's risk and reward like everything else.
Yeah.
And if it works compared to who you are and how you function without it,
Yeah.
you have to make that call.
Yeah.
And most of the parents in this episode for the drive that I was working on, she said pretty much every single set of parents, like 90% of them, will come in and say, we are so glad we did this. And if anything, we're just frustrated we didn't start sooner. Yeah. And even the kids will say that.
Yeah.
Because half the time you're not even, like, unless you're diagnosed, like, you think something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
And that also brings a lot of shame and guilt and frustration and all these negative emotions. Oh. Pause. Okay. But, and that in itself can become this negative feedback loop. And you don't want that either.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, well, I can't focus and I can't think. And, you know, maybe I'm just not smart enough. Maybe I'm not good enough. No one wants to walk around with that all the time.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, it's like, oh, just have more willpower. I'm like, dog, I'm fighting against my very physiology, like my physical makeup.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, you alluded to some of the other ways we can deal with our physiology,
right?
Like exercise, diet.
Sure. Yeah.
And like, you're pretty fit. And you've been fit most of the time I know you. What is
you
that?
Say I'm getting thin. We'll find out.
Yeah, you're wasting away a little bit. You used to have broader shoulders.
I'm on that Bruce Lee cut, dude.
Yeah, it's looking good. Well, like, how does that fit into your life and treatment? Like, because a lot of people struggle to even get started, but you've been reasonably consistent. Like, what does using fitness look like for your brain, or just in general? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, it's funny. I was just seeing my therapist this week. And I mentioned to her that I've been diagnosed and going through this. And she was like, oh, cool. Tell me all about that. But leading up to that, she was like, okay, well, you're feeling depressed because I just moved. And that's been like a real hard time. Like, I don't have my community and my friends. And that's been tough. But while being depleted in serotonin from not being around other people and like nurturing that social bug, you can create and sustain dopamine without pharmacology in a handful of ways. And that can be good food is one way to actually create dopamine. Exercise is another one. And also making sure that you're rested, and then which can help with like regulation and spikes and stuff. And then also, what's the other one? Cold showers, actually. Yeah. So, of course, I went down the rabbit hole of these dudes who were like, ADHD is your superpower. You don't need drugs. Here's my perfect regimen. And I'm like a high functioning, whatever. I watch Liam's channel exclusively. Yeah. And some of the guys on there were basically saying, so if your dopamine spike, if the waveform of your dopamine is this kind of, if you were to like hit a vape or have a beer or like watch porn or something, it's just this big spike and then it drops. And when it drops below, that's when you feel really bad because your brain, like if you get a big dopamine spike, the brain has to balance it out, which therefore means it depletes. So when you hit that ceiling, the next thing you're going to want to do is try to find something else that's going to create another spike. And that's that cycle of addiction, which we're still trying to understand. But you can do things like cold showers and exercise, which instead of creating this crazy dramatic spike, it creates this almost slow release curve. And because it's not so intense, it'll sustain itself and slowly decrease over time. And I find that those are ways which I already do those things. Which is maybe why having ADHD hasn't been such a death sentence for my creativity and just being able to function. But what's funny is that all of these slow release meds that exist, they try to emulate that curve of slow release. It does this. It's not this big gradual spike. And then, it can last anywhere from, depending on the drugs you get, like 8 to 12, 14 hours sometimes. Yeah, but fitness is good. Like that's probably like the biggest one. Yeah.
Do you got a favorite kind of exercise you like to do? You like lifting or what?
Yeah, lifting big time. That's definitely one. Currently doing the Dr. Mike regimen where you do, it's insane. And it's actually started to minimize the amount I want to work out because it's just so intense when you do it. So I'm going to switch my regimen up. But what I have been doing recently is it's 6 supersets, no breaks, and alternating muscle groups. And then
Okay.
you're doing compound movements and full body exercise.
Yeah.
So, for example, it would look like a set of 8 to 10 deadlifts. And then the moment that's done, you then do 8 to 10 like lat pull downs.
Yeah.
And then you do that rotation. You take a 30 to 60 second break between each set, do that 3 to 4 times, and then immediately switch to the next 2.
Yeah.
And then you would do like chest press and planks.
Yeah.
And then you do that cycle, and then you do another set and another set. And you get your whole workout done in about 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And you are a bag after that.
Yeah, you can get a workout done in 45 minutes and not be it. Like, that's like a 3-hour workout in 45 minutes by the sounds of things.
Yeah. But I'm high efficiency, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, you can do everything in less time?
Yeah.
Let's get it. And then, it's crazy, but I need to switch it up because it's a bit too much.
Yeah. I've heard really good things. There's a lot of research about like exercises that involve balance and coordination for boosting your cerebellum and brain function.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're looking for something to do, kettlebell juggling, that's what I'm into.
Love that.
But I think a lot of people get a benefit from like extreme sports and rock climbing and
Yeah, I climb too.
stuff.
That's another one. I find that's the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Physically, but mentally exerted.
Yeah, a little accidental meditation. Like,
Yeah.
damn, I was only paying attention
Whoops.
to the rock.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, my brain was in one place the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good mention too. Finding activities that allow you to be grounded. That's one of the reasons I love painting Warhammer.
Yeah.
I find that it's just such a good zen for me.
Yeah.
I just pick it up and I have this brush and I don't even have my glasses on and I'm trying to do this and just like pick the teeth detail out of a toy.
Yeah.
And man, hours fly by and I find that my brain just recharges so beautifully doing those types of activities. Rock climbing's another one. Your brain actually, you cannot afford to not have your brain in that place.
Yeah.
Because if you do, you're going to fall off the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or in my case, I'll miss a brush stroke and then I've destroyed 4 hours of work on one guy's shield and I have to restart.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a powerful reflection on like meditation. Like, I think a lot of people like meditation can feel like a scary, icky word. Like, I can't sit and just do nothing.
Yeah. Right.
But there's sort of ways to, cultivate presence and mindfulness that don't require you to just cross your legs and focus on your breath.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Painting
if you can do it.
Warhammer can be a form of meditation because essentially you're just trying to practice presence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So take note. If people are looking for a little bit of presence.
If you want to shred the tabletop, dice, tape measures, brushes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So any final like tidbits or advice? Say 20-year-old kid's watching this. He's just got out of high school and he's like, why the hell am I watching TELUS Optic TV?
Yeah. No 20-year-old kids are watching this.
Maybe they are, but they've got creative ambition. Maybe they're in a band and there's the dynamics. They want to do something in life. What do you think is the most important couple things that someone should focus on for getting their head on straight?
Well, I mean, I think I said it a bit in the beginning, but first of all, if you think you might have these things or you're presenting symptoms of being untreated, then just look into it. Like, oh no, I optimized my life. How dare I? Like, whoa, such a bad outcome.
Yeah.
But again, that's only going to be one part of it.
Yeah.
Having an optimized life, like being medicated for me didn't save my life.
Yeah.
It just allowed me to have a further optimized one.
Yeah.
And a lot of the groundwork that I had done came from doing things like talk therapy and working through so much of what it means to be human.
Yeah.
And not being afraid of failure and not being afraid to try and all of those things which had carried me so far up until a certain point. But I think in hindsight, the one thing that would have been nice to have avoided would have been the years of substance abuse, which, again, there are also going to be components of that are either spiritual or emotional, which still exist for me today, for sure. But if I could have cut at least half of that out by just being medicated, I would have done that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And so much of that side of my life I can't change or undo. I don't regret it.
Yeah.
But it would have been nice to not have gone through that and put my wife through that or my parents. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly made for writing some bangers.
Yeah.
In the valley of despair, right?
Yeah.
Some of my best music comes from that place.
Yeah.
But better a tourist stop and not a place to stay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if people want to check out your music projects or learn more about you in general, anywhere you'd suggest they go check it out?
Yeah, the best hub would just be my Instagram, quinn.mcgraw. You can find all of my links and stuff there. And drop me a DM. Always down to chat.
Cool. Thanks so much for joining me today, Quinn.
All right, dude.